Welcome back to part 4 of how I grow tomatoes. Today we're going to talk about weeding, pruning, training, mulching, and watering. So it's been about 3 weeks since the last video. It is now June 3rd and plants are looking great. They are a little bit shorter than I usually like them to be around this time of year. We've had a lot of cold nights in the last month, and even though we're in a hoop house and it gets very hot during the day, the nights are chilly and the overall growth is a little bit slow. But everything is lush and green. There's no sign of disease. Everything is healthy. All I've been doing for the last 3 weeks is just watering every few days, and that's about it. Today is cleanup day. I'm going to weed the beds of all these weeds that have come in from the compost that I put in earlier, and then we're going to get into pruning. So right now I'm just going to clean up the beds. A little tool that I made to help with weeding around delicate things like tomatoes, I took a piece of this just soft wire that I had, and I bent it into a sort of hook shape here, and took a hammer and just flattened it out into a very thin sort of blade almost, and bent things around. I just wound it around itself and then made this little hoop here, and it doesn't look like much, but when you put your hand in here and hold it, you have an awesome little pick that you can just slice weeds off with, and you have some support here on your wrist, and just hold it, and it's a very cool little tool. I'll show you what I do with it. So this is the general idea behind the weeder, is it sort of skims just below the surface of the soil. I mean, it's shaped like a scythe, but you're not slicing, you're just kind of dragging it under the soil, and it pulls the weeds. It either pulls the roots or it slices just below the surface, and you just go right over. And when they're small like this, you don't even have to pick them up. All you have to do is just break the roots, and these things will be dried up and gone in about an hour in the sun and the heat. And when you do have a plant that you don't want to disturb, you just sort of move it away, hook that plant there, and pull them right out of the way. Okay, so now that I have all of the weeds out of the base of the tomato, and we have a lot of, you can see it just looks nice and bushy and looks like it's doing great. But what we want to do is prune off the suckers and things that are not going to be producing tomatoes. So the other thing we have to remember is we don't want any branches touching the soil. So the first thing I'm going to do is take all of these lower branches right off the plant, because these are too low, they're close to the soil, and I don't want things touching soil. So I'm just breaking them off. You sort of bend one way and then pull them off the other way. So this we don't need, this we don't need, this we don't need. I'm going for a nice clean stem coming up out of the dirt. And then I'm going to twine this plant, and it's going to grow up. We want to force the growth up vertical. These we can keep on here because they're not touching soil, they're not low to the ground, but I want to get this all cleaned off. This fork right here, this is what's called a sucker. You get your main stem here, and then you have this growing out here. Now this actually will have flowers on it, and this will grow tomatoes. But I'm trying to force each one of my vines to grow up, straight up in a straight line, so my tomatoes are higher up. If I ever had a damaged top of this vine, I could let this grow and it will produce tomatoes just like a regular stem. The other thing you can do is take this right off like that. Stick this in the ground, and you'll have a whole other tomato plant. This will just keep growing. It's amazing. So, keeping on with my system, I'm taking all this lower growth off. 10 inches up the stem. Just like that. So to break off the stem, I'm bending down and then up. Down, up. Just breaking these off. Down, up. Down, up. So after the rough pruning, what we're left with is a nice strong stem going straight up. We have a couple of branches here for energy, and then at the top of the plant we have flowers, which is where our tomatoes are going to grow. Now there's another kind of sucker, as you can see here. This is a leaf. There's a leaf branch coming off the side here, which is just going to be leaves. Then you have this sucker coming out of the middle, and this will have flowers on it. Now, if you let that grow up, you're going to have a stem that looks like this, central stem, in just a few days or a week or so. If you want to force all your growth growing up and deal with tomatoes just growing up in a straight line, you just have to break these off like that. And I do that for everything down at the bottom of the plant. Take those suckers out of the crotches here. Or you're going to just have a tangle of tomatoes, a crazy mess of vine. I train everything in a straight line with a main stem and prune off all suckers. That way all my tomatoes have their full energy of the plant going into forming the fruit. All right, I'm going to go down this whole row and just desucker the bottom and desucker the plants right down the line. Tomato hands. So that took 4 minutes for 10 plants. All right, so we did the weeding and the pruning. Next up, watering. I water everything in the hoop house with a soaker hose. This hose is about 4 years old, and every year I turn it on and I hope that it still works. Let's see what happens this year. Water. So we weeded, we pruned, we watered. Next up, training. So like I said in the last video, I don't use stakes or cages to train my vines. I hang ropes from the top purlin of the hoop house, hang straight down to the plant. I wrap the bottom of the rope around the plant, wrap the plant around the rope, and then as the plant grows, I twine it around the rope and it supports itself on the rope. Problem with these ropes is they are in a 100-degree hoop house and they're getting beating sun up by the top there, plus that bar gets really hot, the purlin gets really hot, and the ropes weaken at the top and they sometimes snap. So I can get 2 years out of a rope. The first year I hang it up there, it hangs down, I wrap it around the bottom of the vine, everything grows. The ropes last 1 year, no problem. They usually fail the middle of the second year, which is when you don't want them to fail, when they're hanging tomatoes on them. So I untie the rope from the top of the purlin, tie the base up there, flip the rope upside down, and that becomes the bottom. And then I can get 2 years out of a rope. This year is a new rope year because these have all been hanging for 2 years. So it's time to retie some ropes. So as far as ropes go, this is the stuff you want to use. Twisted polypropylene rope. I've tried brown garden twine, I've tried cotton rope. Both of them tend to fail before the season's over. This stuff lasts a whole season, and I can get 2 seasons out of it because I flip the rope upside down each year. And this costs $2 and we'll do 4 plants. So we're talking 50 cents per vine for a year, but I get 2 years, so each vine, it costs me 25 cents to support the vine for the year. So here are all the ropes all cut up and looped on one end. I'm just going to lasso them around the top frame and hang each one down. So the beds are weeded, the water is on, vines are pruned, the ropes are hung, and now we just need to train the vines onto the ropes. So tying up the vines is pretty basic. All you need to do is pull down on the rope. The rope is in line with the stem, directly over the stem, and I just put weight down on the rope so it's taut, and then I go around the vine this way. Follow the pattern of the leaves and the branches there as they're coming out, and go around a couple times right down to the base like that. And then make sure everything is upright, pull down, take up the slack one more time around like that. One more time around the base. And then I just tuck it under the soaker hose so that it doesn't come unraveled. It doesn't have to be tight. And now the weight of the vine, as the vine grows, it's going to grow up, and this is going to start shooting out to the side. But when I come out here during the next time I come out to check on my vines or pick tomatoes, you just wrap that around like that one time. And as it grows up, you just flip it around the rope, and then the weight is going to keep pulling down on this, and that thing's going to go right up to the ceiling of the hoop house. Final step today in tomato maintenance, straw mulch. So there you go. 22 tomato plants, weeded, pruned, tied, trained, mulched, and watered. Hopefully we will have tomatoes. We do have a lot of flowers right now, so we should have tomatoes, I'm thinking, in a few weeks. These are all mostly small cherry and cocktail sized tomatoes, so they don't take long to grow once they take off. There it is. And hopefully in about a month and a half we have tomatoes up here on the roof. Believe it or not. Well, that wraps up part 4 of how I grow tomatoes. I hope you learned something. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, give me a comment if you have any questions. I do answer just about every question that's been coming up on my channel because it's a small channel so far and I have the time to do it. I also really like some of the discussion we're starting having on other parts of the channel, so check that out. And there's a lot more coming up. We've got major home renovation on deck. Blueberry season's about to begin, and as soon as these tomatoes start to ripen, we're going to have part 5 of how I grow tomatoes. So thanks very much for hanging out, and please stay in touch, share the video, tell your friends. Have a great day. I never know how to end these videos.